Okay, up next is going to be kind of a two-parter. I like to do these two pieces kind of simultaneous, and we're going to really focus on the decorative piece is what I call it. So if you're looking at your clip as well as that orange decorative piece, this right here is what you see on the screen, that orange decorative piece. But because these fit so swimmingly together, it's actually really nice to get them in one shot. So we're going to start by ignoring this threading part and this clip, and we're going to work on that area there. Okay, so again, I am not going to give you away my measurements. You need to go get those yourself. We're going to start a new part studio, and I'm going to kind of just walk you through how I would go about this clip. Now, if I look at this decorative piece, it's kind of conical. It's a bit rounded. And we're going to just kind of do the same thing like we did with the pen body, except for just make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so I'm going to hit new sketch, sticking with my front view. That's the way I like to do things. Mute all of our other planes, view normal to, and we're good to get started. Okay. I know that it is this wide. Remember, we're taking radius into consideration. I'm going to make it this long. And I know that the other end is approximately this tall. Okay. Then I'm going to grab my spline tool, and I know that there's kind of like a light arc to it, and it gets a little bit steeper towards the end. So I'm going to put 2 dots in here for the spline. Remember, when you're ready to let go of the end of the spline, just hit the escape key and you're good to go there. And if I need to, I'll escape out of the spline tool and just kind of make a few adjustments, but I actually like where I was on the first try. Remember, you will be measuring all of this though. Okay, so it is hollow. We have a wall thickness on this piece, wider on the wide end, narrower on the narrow end, so it should look something like comparable to that. Okay, so then I'm going to revolve this piece just like I did with the pen body. I'm going to create a new solid. I'm going to revolve it around this bottom axis. And that's kind of our piece. Wider on that end, narrower on this end. Looks great. Perfect. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I'm actually going to make this a little bit longer. Let's make this more like 10. Perfect. Just kind of makes it look a little bit. Did I change anything? Wonder if it scaled the whole thing. Anyways. Okay. So I've got that all set. I need, oh, right. Need to revolve that piece. That looks good. Okay, these are all good to go. All right. Now, in order for me to get this kind of weird cutoff section on this your left, this right here, this doesn't have to be perfect. What does need to be perfect is this needs to be able to mate to the actual clip portion in your assembly perfectly, and it's really easy to do. So I really need to just kind of double check this profile. I'm going to hit the front edge like I normally do. I'm going to recognize that this kind of makes a Z shape, or it comes straight down and then bends and then comes back straight down. Okay, so I'm going to reopen this sketch. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to create a new sketch. on that front plane, just a completely brand new one. And I am going to actually make the cut on this sketch too. Because what we're going to do is we're going to end up making that S-curve and then cutting the piece that we don't want out. Simple. Okay, so before I get started though, I'm going to actually revitalize my sketch 1, bring back a couple of those key measurements like this edge and this center, just make sure that I'm centered appropriately. And the way that you do that is you use something called the Use tool. So Use, you notice that I turn my sketch 1 back on. It usually turns off once you make an extrusion. I turn it back on so then I can actually snag these lines and use them from sketch 1 to sketch 2 as well. So just going to get them set up just like that. And that's looking pretty good already. Okay, go ahead and hide those. All right, now I'm going to take my spline tool. I'm just going to very carefully try and duplicate that same line along a certain path. Since I'm freehanding this, this is going to be a little bit more difficult. Remember, you need to measure all of these different things. So you need to measure the distance from here to here, or measure the distance from this bottom corner to that bottom edge. That's going to make your life a lot easier. So I'm just going to go through and start to create a line. Looks something like this, and I'm going to create enough points, and I want this to meet at the midpoint, and I'm going to stop. So I am actually going to be spending some time trying to get things to look a little bit better. This should be pretty straightforward for you all once you have your measurements. Key is trying to make sure that you actually grab these white parts as well. Make sure that they are pretty much like 90 degrees. This might not be perfect, again, because I'm not measuring for the sake of time. I'm going to call that good. Now we want to make sure that this part matches on the bottom half. So we're going to use the mirror tool. Mirror is just like in elementary school when you were playing with what a reflection looks like in a mirror, where if I select a mirror line, this is where I'm going to put my mirror on my piece of paper, and it's going to reflect what it sees on one side onto the other. Okay, so we're literally just taking this upper blue line and flipping it along this yellow line, just like that, mirrored. Perfect. Now what we need to do is we need to do a mirror vertically. In order for us to do that, we have to have a mirror line like we did last time. So we're going to flip it across this construction line. So I'm going to type in mirror recently used. My mirror line is just this construction line I made. And then I'm going to flip it along that edge. Perfect. Good to go. Now, we want to keep this piece on the left, and we're going to use this right piece later for our clip. So what we need to do is we actually need to clean some things up, and then we're going to complete this half and do a remove extrude. Okay? To complete this, I like to just use the trim tool. Trim tool is the letter M on your keyboard, M as in Mike, or this pair of scissors right here. And it's pretty simple. I don't want this big thing right here, so I'm going to click on it. That's the trim tool. I don't like having this thing here. Trim tool. Goodbye. If I wanted to cut this section right here, I could, and like say if I had a couple lines that intersected, and I just wanted this line and this line up to this point, I can also use the trim tool to just cut off a section of it and then clean things up. So if you miss a spot and you're like, oh, I went overboard, you can just trim it off. It's super easy. Okay, I'm going to grab the spline one more time. And like I said, we need to be able to complete this so that we can do a remove extrude of all of the stuff on the right that we don't want. So I'm going to go along and just use my spline tool making sure I don't mess with this point here or this point here, and you're going to see that's going to gray that out. Perfect. We're done sketching. And then you can imagine we'll take our extrude and we're going to use our remove section. So we're going to remove this area. And remember, if you're only going in one direction, it's not going to come out. So we need to do a symmetric cut. We need to have this cut in both directions. Notice how, like, instead of just like my thumb moving or just my index finger moving, we want both of them. So that's a symmetric. So if I go through, not changing direction and not doing an offset, we want to be symmetric. So then the wider this gets, cuts the rest of that out. I'm going to right click, edit appearance, make it orange. There you go. That's how you would make it. Okay, so now let's think about the clip for a second. I'm actually going to stop on this one, and then we'll go do the clip on the next video.